Hello, everybody. This is ModPo 22. It has a nice ring to it. And we are back. It's the band getting back together. I mean, you should have seen and heard Amber Rose Johnson enter this room and see friends. I was going to say old friends, but speak for yourself, people. I'm not feeling old. Continuous friends, ongoing friends, friends for life. And they are here. Max is here on Zoom, coming in all the way from Germany. I take it you're in Germany. Hey, Max.
Max is in Germany.
Hi, Al. I am indeed in Berlin, Germany.
It's really great to see you. It's been some months.
Yeah.
And Kate is here. Kate Colby is here from Providence, Rhode Island. I'm assuming, Kate, yes?
I'm here.
Hello, good to see you. Allie Castleman is here. I'm assuming also from New York, or maybe from New York City, the greatest city in the world, yes. And Gabby is, what's that?
I just said right.
No, it is. It's like an epithet for me. New York City, comma, the greatest city in the world. I always say it. My daughter is driven crazy by that, but it's true, I think. You know, it bears repeating. Jackie Gleason used to call Miami the greatest city in the world. I mean, come on. Gabby, you wouldn't go with that. Certainly not Jackie Gleason's version of Miami.
I would not, no.
And speaking of Gabby, Gabby is here all the way from some place near Stanford, maybe Stanford itself.
No, I'm not in Stanford. I am in San Francisco on a research travel, and I'm in a shopping mall food court, and I forgot my laptop in Chicago. So I'm not in my best form, but I'm here.
Oh, you know what? You are always in good form, even if your view is vertical for us. You are, and you're right in from some cheapo Walgreens distribution of over-the-counter something or others. Anyway, Gabby, it's good to see you. And Dave is here, coming all the way from Arizona. Right, Dave? How are you?
Yes.
How was your summer?
Great.
It's a wee bit hot there, I understand. Is it triple digits?
Yeah, I mean, but it's only 103 or so. It's not that bad.
Oh, my God. You are too much. Here in the room, we have a new member of the ModPo team, although most of us know that Sophia DeRose has been connected with ModPo previously, but you're here for the ModPo team, a TA in ModPo for the first time. Everybody, welcome Sophia DeRose to the family. Yay, Sophia DeRose. Hello, Sophia.
Hi.
You are fabulous and remarkable, and you're going to be even more remarkable if you move your mic really close.
I'm sorry.
Okay, because you'll just drive Chris a little crazy
Sorry,
because he's
Chris.
got to do the levels. We have Amber Rose Johnson here, ARJ herself. Hello.
Hello, Alphil Reese.
It's good to see you.
It's great to see
We
you.
need to
Al.
connect outside of webcasts and
We definitely do.
do stuff.
We do.
But it's good to see you. And Lainey Brown, the amazing Lainey Brown, ModPo's coordinator. You too, with the mic, please, closer. Jason is here. Hello, Jason. Good to see you.
Hello, Al.
And hi. And Jake Marmer is here. And Jake,
Hey.
a lot of Americans have sort of lost the front page story of the horrible incursion into Ukraine. And you are, because you care so much about it, you have family there. You're just a reminder that we all should care and that we should all do something somehow. And I just wanted to say that to, I don't know, make you feel like we're trying to hold on to the thought, Jake. But there you are. Hello, Jake. Good to see you. You were in
too, Al.
You are in some fabulous oversized couch. That's really great. I love that.
Or it looks that way, at least. It's
Okay.
a workspace here in Los Angeles.
Okay. Okay, so just a couple of announcements. We're going to get started. We've got a phone number you can call if you're watching. And there are 3 people in the room who might actually have a comment or question. And do we have a mic that enables that to happen, Zach? Okay, great. The number to call if you're not in the room is, or you could call from in the room, but that would be weird. 610-616-3208, 610-616-3208. And if you're outside the country and it's easier for you to Skype, you can do a Skype, just plain old Skype, but it turns out for us to be audio. And the Skype handle is ModPoPen, ModPo, P-E-N-N, ModPoPenn. There are 3 other ways to communicate with us during this webcast. One is to go to the Coursera ModPo site on Coursera, the ModPo site, and go to the discussion forums, click on discussion forum, and then click on live webcasts. That would be the top level forum name. And when you click that, you're going to see a special subforum for this particular September 7th, 2022 live webcast. And that is a place where you can drop comments, and Lainey Brown has consented to, no, it's Kate. Did I write that wrong?
No, it's me.
You're doing the forum.
Sorry, YouTube.
You're doing YouTube, so I was right.
You're
It's
right.
Kate.
You're at the forum.
We've been doing
right.
this Kate thing. Kate to
I
10,
know.
Kate to 11. Lainey, I think Lainey and I are just becoming numerically dyslexic or something
That's
like
it.
that. So Kate, thank you. Kate's going to be looking for your comments there. And Kate, don't wait for me to turn and say what's happening in the subforum. If you see something interesting, just wave at us. And so Twitter is at ModPoPen, and Sophia has consented to check Twitter. And the way you handle that, well, our account is ModPoPen, but the handle you're supposed to use is hashtag ModPoLive or ModPolive or ModOlive. Anyway, that's it. And the YouTube comment stream, which in a way is the easiest way to participate in the conversation, and that would be Lainey, who's checking the YouTube comment. Okay, just a couple of announcements. Next Wednesday, our weekly webcast for week 2 will be starting at 9:30 a.m., and that is not a treat for the West Coast people, though I'm sure Dave will be up. Yeah, Dave. Gabby will be back in Chicago probably, so you're... And Jake, poor Jake, it will be 6:30 a.m., but he's iffy about that. The kids will wake you up at 5, it should be no problem. 9:30 a.m., really good for the Europeans and really good for people in far East Asia and Oceania, because that will be at about, it'll be 10:30 p.m. and mid-evening. The next week, September 21st, is going to be our celebration all day of ModPo. We'll send you another announcement about it. And we really want you to come here. It's also going to be a celebration of this book. So it's a celebration of 10 years of ModPo and also a celebration of this book, which is not really that expensive, and you can get a discount. Just ask us. We'll send you information about the discount. Maybe somebody can look that up while we're talking here. And you can buy this thing, and you can read it. There's an essay about a poet and a poem by Jake Marmer. There's an essay by Gabby. You know, like a lot of people here are in this book, and it's really fun. And not only are we going to celebrate this book on the 21st for the week 3 webcast, but today the first caller, and there's already someone on the line, it seems like, the first caller is going to win a copy of this for free. We're going to mail it to you as a gift. All right? So that's September 21st. Another announcement, please completely ignore any automated deadline notification you receive from Coursera. Coursera, very nice people, except that they don't accept. They're very nice people, period. However, that's wrong too. They're very nice people, and
also
they don't really thank you, Amber Rose. You're practicing on your politeness, and I'm a little rusty on it. They don't accommodate, their automated system does not accommodate the fact that ModPo is an open, ongoing site. So our course period ends, it starts on October 1st, 2020, which is a fictional date, and it ends in the year 2023 in December, but another fictional date because it will never end if we have anything to do with it. And so they tell you, like, your quiz was due, on 9/11 or something. Like, your quiz is due, 4 months from now. Ignore it all. Ignore deadlines about quizzes. Ignore deadlines about due dates for essays. Only listen to us. So almost daily, I will be sending you an email, and it will cover everything you need to know. Okay? And if you happen to be tuning into this webcast and you are not getting my pretty regular, almost daily at this point, reminders by email, contact us by writing us at modpo@writing.upenn.edu, and tell us you're not receiving. We have a way of diagnosing why. We can figure out why you're not getting those. Okay. Gee, I've talked enough. The introductory thread is fantastic. Hundreds of people have said hello, but there are thousands out there. So if you haven't introduced yourself, even if you're an old-timer, oops, there I go again. Nobody's an old-timer. If you are a seasoned veteran, that's wrong too. If you've been around a while, introduce yourself. I just want to quote one introduction that came in today from Sadie Gutt. Sadie is from the UK. Sadie is new to ModPo as of June 22. Sadie writes, I joined ModPo in June. I've been working through the course by myself. And now Sadie doesn't have to do it by themselves because we're here all together now for the Symposium mode. Joined ModPo, been working through this course by myself, most recently ranging freely through ModPo Plus. Yeah, what a fabulous resource, says Sadie and Al too. I'm a poet writing under the name Seekers of Lice, L-I-C-E, Seekers of Lice. That is the poet name. The pseudonym. And I've also translated Russian poetry as Anne Gutt. I have great admiration for the utopian ideals of this course. I think we like Sadie and Anne and Seekers of Lice already. Anyway, do introduce yourself. All right. I'm going to just name 5 poems we're talking about this week. Then I'm going to, we do have someone on the line. No, we don't. Okay. I'm going to go around and ask everybody just to toss out a favorite, current favorite poem of this week. And it need not be in the main syllabus. It can be ModPo Plus. Emily Dickinson's I Dwell in Possibility in the main syllabus. Tell All the Truth But Tell It Slant is in the main syllabus. That I don't know, teasing, the Brain Within Its Groove poem is in the main syllabus. A selection of cantos from Whitman's Song of Myself and Divya Victor's response to and kind of replication and response and critique of Whitman called W is for Walt Whitman's Soul. And there are others. So I'm going to call you. Just say what your favorite is and like a tagline phrase as to why. Sorry, Jake, I didn't give you any chance to prepare, but you're up first, and Jason's next.
Okay, thanks. But I'm gonna tweak the rule. It's not actually in the syllabus, but it came from Emily Dickinson line that somebody quoted to me, which is "Faith is doubt," and I wanted to find that little poem, and it's not exactly even like in the canon of Emily Dickinson.
So it could
poems.
actually be a fake quote from Dickinson, but you like it.
I
Well,
do know it's a real thing. It was a letter.
You really
that
screwed
she
with our
wrote.
little pattern here, but that's okay, Jake. You are entitled. Faith
what I
is
do.
doubt. Thank you.
Yes.
Did I say Max is on deck? No, Jason's on deck and Max after that. Jason, you're muted.
I muted myself, and I'd say I'm going to preempt probably a bunch of people, but W is for Walt Whitman's Soul by Divya Victor, as a way of both reveling in Whitman's extraordinary kind of catalogs of what is around the speaker of his poem, and at the same time indulging in that, but simultaneously, paradoxically, being a critique of that.
Great. Thank you. That's a fabulous summary of what that poem is. Max is up next, and Kate, your favorite poem briefly?
I'm going to shout out The Brain is Wider Than the Sky, Emily Dickinson, which is on the ModPo Plus
Do you have
syllabus.
the
And there's
text in
also
front of you, Max?
Sorry? Do I have it in front of me? Yeah.
Read the first 4 lines, please.
Sure, 1 second. The brain is wider than the sky, for put them side by side, the one the other will contain with ease, and you decide.
That is screwed up. That is really hard.
It's a real
you
brain.
agree, Max, that the brain is wider than the sky because we have to imagine the sky, and so there it's by definition wider than the sky. Yeah?
That would be one interpretation.
You're being polite to me. Why do you like it?
I mean, I think it's Well, I did a really fun collaborative close reading of it with the European Time Zone Meetup group back in June, and we also read Ray Armantrout's essay on it from the Difference is Spreading alongside as a kind of guide,
This
which was
book,
very
right, Zach?
illuminating. Kind of, I don't know. I had yeah, there it is, the book, that
Book.
one.
There's an essay in there. Zach can't switch over to me very quickly because he's not as deft as he used to be. He just came back from vacation. By the way, I did. I needed to say hello to. I'm still holding it up, Zach, for no reason apparently. Chris Martin is back there. Zach Cardner, Paul Burke, and Chris and Zach in particular, members of the ModPo team. Thank you guys. Sorry, Max, I interrupted you.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, it's if you can just dwell on every single word of that poem and be both enlightened and confused, from one second to the next.
Yeah.
It's truly a paragon of compression in poetic language.
Well said. All right, fantastic. And that is in ModPo Plus. Kate's next, and Allie's on deck. And I'm just going to repeat the phone number because Chris Martin is pining away for someone to talk to. 610-616-3208. And if you want to Skype, it's ModPo Pen, 610-616-3208. First caller gets a copy of The Difference is Spreading. Kate and then Allie.
I particularly love Tell All the Truth, but Tell It Slant. And the thing I love about it is she never really says or even fully indicates what kind of truth she's talking about. But to me, it feels like a linchpin poem in her oeuvre, because the more you read Dickinson, the better idea you get of what kind of, what exactly the nature of the truth is she's referring to here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kate. Allie and then Gabby's on deck.
I'm feeling Song of Myself right now, particularly as kind of like a back to school poem.
Explain that. I am the teacher of athletes.
Sorry.
Never mind. I was making a wisecrack about his teacher stuff. Back to school.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of teacher stuff. There's a lot of like pedagogy you can read into, but I'm just kind of looking at Canto 6. Which starts, a child said, "What is the grass?" fetching it to me with full hands. And I like that their response is, "How could I answer the child? I do not know what it is any more than he."
Nice.
So something about that spirit of kind of like free inquiry and wonder and getting into the world and outside of yourself feels very September back to school.
Oh, that's nice. And you are pining away for September back to school yourself, aren't you? Having been a school person for so long.
I love September back to school.
Yeah, I don't so much, with all due respect to everybody here, but I keep having dreams like I'm 2 weeks late to meeting my class and I don't know where the classroom is, that kind of, dream. Gabby is up and then Lainey on deck. Favorite poem, quickly?
Hello, yeah. I'm going to also shout out Song of Myself, though I'm going to go Canto 3, which starts, I have heard what the talkers were talking. I just think it's got all the good stuff that you want in a Whitman poem. It's got your sort of classic nature Santa Claus thing, but it's also got, it's got the sort of sexual side. It's funny. It's weirdly abstract. It like sort of looks simple, but once you start to poke at it, it gets a lot more interesting, I think. So I'm into that.
It's Canto 3 of Song of Myself. One of the lines to the end of the canto is, "Out of the dimness, opposite equals advance. Always substance and increase, always sex. Always a knit of identity, always distinction, always a breed of life." It's all over the place. Thank you, Gabby. We're up to Lainey with Amber Rose on deck.
I'm going to go with Tell All the Truth, but Tell It Slant, because at this moment there's just so much truth that is very hard to confront face on. So success in circuit lies.
And it really does, right? Despite the fact that we want some kind of stable truth in an era where truth is just truthy and not really truth. So you got to reconcile that. It's pretty hard. I'm not asking you to do that now, but it
can't
is a
do
pretty hard thing to do. Thank you, Lainey. Amber Rose, followed by Sophia.
Okay, so I also wanted to give some love to Tell All the Truth and Tell It Slant, but Edie is getting her props from others, so I'm gonna let that rock. My pick is going to be Sid Corman. It Isn't for Want from ModPo Plus.
In week 2.
Is it in week 2?
Yeah, but that's okay. It's fine. It's a plug.
Is it in week 2?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
But that's fine. No, say it.
Well, I was so
Plug it.
committed to Tell All the Truth or Tell It Slant. But fine, I'm plugging it for week 2. And it's nice to read, that's why it's set up this way, but to read Emily Dickinson and go into Sid Corman and to see what they do with the short lines and with the kind of breadth and open space that they create between their words for you to come in with your own understanding and meaning. So whereas Whitman does a lot to fill the space, I feel invited into Sid Corman's work and Edie's work to kind of do my own building out.
Nice. Thank you, Amber Rose. And a good plug for week 2. Week 2, as everybody knows, is another week in which we think of the Dickinsonian and the Whitmanian. Before we get into the rise of modernism, we sort of break chronology and we reach forward to more contemporary poets, modern and contemporary poets who are following in the Whitman and the Dickinson tradition. And Sid is one of those that we sort of somewhat arbitrarily put with the Dickinsonian. Certainly that poem is. So Sophia, followed by Dave. Chris, do we have someone on the phone? Is that what's happening? Okay. Would you tell that person we'll be with them in a second? Sophia DeRose.
I'm also going to give Emily Dickinson some love, mainly because I had office hours this morning at 8 a.m.
Did you get some takers?
Yeah, and I had a really nice conversation with Raymond about, he called you out. He said, Al said this is the most important word, the word this, and I want to talk about that. So we had a really nice conversation about how this allows reader and poet to meet and how it allowed us to meet each other and just like the collaborative aspect of understanding each other outside of a tangible. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Dave Poplar, and then we'll go to the phone.
I want to shout out the same exact ED poem, not to be derivative, but I feel like I Dwell in Possibility is sort of like home base for ModPo. It's like an interesting starting point for infinity, if that's even a possible thing. But this poem, to me, I know we analogize it to the Gallery Writer's House and things like that, but it really does seem to be the pole star, the foundation, the home base for the whole course.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Yes, it's good to be reminded of its anthemic qualities. It is on a brass plaque in the vestibule, the foyer of this building, because our idea is a visitor's the fairest, for occupation this. And of course, as you enter the house and see it, that you realize that the occupation, the dwelling, the work is right here in this space, which is extended through the magic of Zoom and YouTube outside the space, but still, it is here and this. Thank you all. Great warm-up. Chris, we have someone on the phone. Will you tell us who it is? And here's the voice of Chris Martin.
Yes, the voice you've been waiting for. I just want to say very quickly first that we've had a few people call in just saying hello, most recently Stanley Delgozo.
Stanley is in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Yes, Stanley.
We've
he called just to say hello to you, and that's it. He didn't want to talk to us. Okay.
Perhaps.
Okay. Good going, Stan.
No, and we're getting a bunch of phone calls coming in, and I can only answer one at a time, unfortunately.
Okay.
So
right. When are you going to fix that? Can you be like a switchboard person?
I want to.
Hold on 1 minute. I'm switching
to. Yeah. I would love to do that. But anyway, I'll cut to the chase now. Calling from California, we have Vijaya.
Vijaya, oh my God. Vijaya, can you hear me?
Oh, hold on, I have to unmute. I'm a little rusty too, you know.
You are rusty.
Try again.
It's been Vijaya?
Yeah. Yes. Hello to you and hello to everyone on the ModPo team, all the wonderful TAs.
It's good to hear your voice.
Spoken to and all those who have not spoken to.
Yeah, you're such a good ModPo citizen. You're so active last year. You're back now, right? You're ready to go?
Yes, I'm back. Yes,
good.
Yes.
Well, we have a book for you. It's this book here. And all you need to do is give Chris Martin at the end of this call, or maybe you've already done it. I don't know if Chris is that efficient. We need to get, or actually, you know what? Why don't you're so in touch with us. Why don't you email your mailing address to us at modpo@writing.upenn.edu, or you can write to me. I know you're in touch with me. And we will get your address. And Sophia Durose is sitting to my left, and you're right. We'll mail you a copy of this book.
Thank you very much. But can I tell you one thing? I already have the book. So why don't you give this to the second caller today?
Okay. The second caller is going to get a copy of this book. Is that okay with everybody? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Do you have a question or comment?
Okay. Yes. I love Emily Dickinson, and she's my all-time favorite. And this time when I was reading her Tell All the Truth, it struck me that she was trying to contrast all the truth to just the general truth. So, because I have an argument with her on that.
Yes.
I think, it's not all the truth that dazzles and makes people blind. It's like the half-truths that dazzle and makes people blind. Because, I think when you look at social media, I think it's the half-truths that really blind people.
Wow. So you're asking essentially about all the truth. What could that possibly mean? And that's a great question, Vijaya. And I wonder if you would be willing to hang up and listen to the various answers we give through the webcast.
Sure.
Because what we'll do in that way is we'll get the phone line open for someone else to call. So thank you for calling, and I hope to see you soon through Zoom or something.
Yes.
I know we're in touch. This is great. Thanks for calling.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Vijay, such a good member of the community. Well, usually I call on people, but can I get, like, in the Zoom, a couple of hands immediately who want to deal with this question of all the truth? Maybe two people there and one person at the table. So Lainey to start with, and Jason and Kate.
All right. So the first thing that comes to mind is that the whole truth means not lying by omission. It was very easy to be untruthful by leaving certain parts out, either consciously or unconsciously. So to tell the whole truth means you have to look at all the perspectives and not selectively tell the convenient truth.
Nice. That's really very interesting. So all the truth is inclusive, and even if it's full of contradictory truths,
hard to manage.
So it's the opposite of ideology. We were having this conversation recently with Joan Rotalick. The opposite of ideology is all the truth that allows all the truths, permits, includes all the truths. So it is inclusive, and therefore it is, if I may translate it into contemporary political terms, it's progressive because it's anti-exclusive. Progressive in the sense of inclusion.
Could be anything.
Could be anything.
That we don't want to know.
Okay. Fantastic. How about, I think it was Kate and Jason. Kate, what's your thought on this?
Vijaya got me really thinking about the semantics of the word all and whether Dickinson means truth as a single monolithic entity or a composite entity of all the truths all together.
Right.
And of course, it's both those things. But I hadn't really thought about that one little word before and how important it is. And
also the word it at the end of the line, Kate, because if you use the plural truths, all the truth would be truths, but tell it slant. So she's really pushing us to think of all of the plural truths to be a thing, to be an entity, a thing. Right. Love it. Thank you. Jason, quick thought on this, and then we have a phone call.
Yeah, I mean, just on the same lines, that just as like at the end of the poem, the truth must dazzle gradually, or every man be blind. That it just occurred to me for the first time with this poem that tell all the truth, but tell it slant. That, yeah, it's like all the truths braided together. So if there's a truth and there's another truth, they kind of become greater truth, another truth, and so forth, expansively. But that in the telling of it, to tell it directly, kind of open your mouth up and have just like blinding light pour out of it instead of words. It protects the speaker and the reader to have it be told slant.
So that's interesting because the explanation kind is a sweet and empathetic explanation, and that's really what you're talking about. So ironically, paradoxically, all the truth, which is just a ginormous concept, turns into the kinder version of truth, as opposed to the narrow truth, the intentional truth, or whatever. Thank you all. That was great. And Vijaya, thank you so much. Chris, we have someone on the phone, and I would love to talk to this person. Who is it?
And yes, you will. You will enjoy it. Anthony Watkins we have calling from North Florida.
Anthony Watkins.
Yes.
Heroic ModPoer. Hello, Anthony.
Heroic ModPo what?
ModPo citizen. And you are making a long trip up here to see us on September 21st. Is that still happening?
I am. Yes, that is happening. And I hope to see as many ModPoers as possible.
Thank you for that shout out.
I think that's a real good idea.
There's going to be, we have a nice RSVP list with a bunch of people. I'll share that list with the team. We got a whole lot of people coming. We also have people coming because we're bringing some interesting poets from everywhere who are going to be with us. Monica De La Torre is one. Tracy Morris is another. And we're really excited to have a kind of great summit meeting, a real summit meeting, as they say in blues. So, Anthony, do you own a copy of this book, The Difference is Spreading?
I have nothing intelligent to add today. I just saw the book was still available and said,
"Oh,
hey, I'll
that's
grab that."
Great! The book is yours. All you have to do is send us your address, which I think we already have anyway. Yeah.
Why not pick it up in 2 weeks?
Oh, okay. Sophia, make a note. We'll pick it up in 2 weeks. Happy to give you a copy. Great. So what? So since all you wanted is a book, this is fantastic. Someone else is going to call in a minute, but I just want one of us to praise you. Maybe Amber Rose is the one who will speak for all of us in praising you and thanking you for your super involvement in this course over the years. Amber Rose?
Anthony, you're fantastic. Your dedication to commenting on the webcast, I didn't have to get so loud. But truly, you are such a presence and make so many people feel welcome and heard and feel like they're getting engagement and feedback. And that's really what makes ModPo so special. You're truly a TA extraordinaire, and we're so excited to welcome you on the 21st.
Snaps for Anthony Watkins.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Anthony. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. See you later.
Bye.
Okay, that was Anthony Watkins calling from Northern Florida. Started ModPo in North Carolina, I believe.
Florida, right?
Northern Florida. I don't know where. Do you know where?
It's like between Gainesville and Jacksonville, kind of.
So really northern. Yeah, along that panhandle. Very cool. Okay, the number is 610-616-3208. I would like to turn to Kate, who's been following the discussion forums in case there's something there. If not, okay. Sophia's been following Twitter, or will now.
No, I've been following Twitter.
Okay. Tell us something interesting there. And Lainey, what's happening in YouTube? So let's start with Kate. Anything in the forums?
Yeah, we got a few people in here. And our friend Denny Stern.
Denny.
Yeah. Steadfast and true. He has posed some interesting questions, one of which I'm going to put on the air. He asks, is there a difference between the long poem and short pieces? I'm sorry, is the difference between the long poem and short pieces as evident as it appears? For example, can Emily Dickinson's work be read as one long poem consisting of many short ones?
Wow.
So I've been chewing on that.
Great. We're going to leave that hanging for a second, and maybe we'll come back to it. Sophia, what's happening in Twitter?
So far on Twitter, we just see a lot of support. We have someone saying some of us are old timers and they're okay with that, which you should be.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Others just saying hello?
Yeah.
Tell us who's saying hello. What are they saying?
That was R.D. Maxwell who.
That's
said
Ray.
that, yes.
Ray Maxwell. Was that the same Ray who came to your office hour this morning?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. From Washington.
Yeah, and then we've got neuropsychology posting a picture of the webcast with the differences spreading underneath it.
Oh, take a screenshot of that. I would love that.
I will.
Yeah. I think that might be Anthony Risser. It's possible. I'm really deep into this because I know the handles of hundreds of people. Fabulous. Thank you, Twitter people. The Twitter people tend to be, hello, how are you? You know, kind of that. I like that part. Lainey, what do we have in YouTube?
We have a robust conversation about tell the truth, but tell it slant, responding to the conversation here. That's really wonderful. We've got Mandana and Miranda Jupp and
the regulars.
Jane Ward and Paige. Am I going to pronounce
Polsine?
Yes.
From Los Angeles.
Yeah. And it's fantastic. And we also have a really interesting question about what it means to be ModPo, a ModPovian, from Adrian French. Is a ModPo citizen part of a transnational democracy?
Wow. Okay, those are two questions. We've got Denny's question as to whether it's possible to think of Dickinson as one long poem or a series of writings stitched together and should be read as a life work, a life poem. I think that's reasonable. Wallace Stevens, who definitely didn't write like that, claimed that all his poems added up to something called the whole of harmonium. No, he's wrong about that. He wrote individual poems. But maybe Dickinson is right. So I think we should consider that question. But if I call on you, and I'm going to do this spontaneously, if I call on you, you might also deal with Adrian French, who's thinking about ModPo as transnational and
transnational democracy.
Yes, so in other words, a citizen is a citizen of a free, non-credit, open online course could be achieving some kind of non-national status. That's a hard question to ask, especially since we're speaking in a language that only some of the countries are using. So there's a big, plus you have to have some either leisure or you have to be in a life situation where you can put a lot of time into it. So we can deal with that. So why don't I let me ask Allie and Max and Amber Rose to deal with this question. Sorry, Allie, I sprung it on you. Either question, either Denny's or Adrian's.
Yeah, well, I think just kind of getting to the notion of what a ModPo citizen is and transnational democracy. I don't know if I have an answer to that, but there is something nice about particularly how technology facilitates a relative borderlessness in this course in this community.
Yeah.
So whether that means, during one of these webcasts, the ability to call in, the ability to chime in on many different forums, whether it's on Coursera, on YouTube, on Twitter.
So you think that platform agnosticism, which is sort of a fancy phrase for what you're just describing, has about it rather than a chaos, it has about it a unifying alternative to national unity, or this is where I am, I'm a Philadelphian. It contributes to borderlessness. That's sort of what you're saying.
Yeah, I definitely think so, because we're not confined to the kind of stipulations or eccentricities of any given platform.
Yes, and they all have eccentricities. Very cool. Amber Rose and then Max. I think it was Max that I called on. You want to respond to Denny, the whole of Dickinson, a single poem, or Adrian talking about citizenship?
Yeah, I'll take on Denny's question. I think that's a really interesting idea, and we had actually started this conversation in my office hours. I think that when you're reading a lot of works by one poet, it can feel like trying to read one long poem, or trying to make sense of one poem. Like I'm thinking about the comment about one of Dickinson's poem being like a linchpin in the rest of the oeuvre. I do think that there is something in the same way that like a line break within a singular poem does a particular kind of work to maybe separate thoughts or separate ideas, that there is some value to recognizing, okay, there's a reason why this poet contained these ideas in this one poem. But when you put that one poem next to another poem, there's all kinds of interesting relationships that can emerge that you might miss if you're only looking at one poem at a time. So I think that there's value to it. And I think that we have, as readers, have the opportunity to ask, okay, why weren't these two things put together? What happens if I put them together? And then what happens if I read them as totally distinct? And I think different things will be revealed.
That's really smart. And, you know, I don't know what manuscripts Gabby is looking at in San Francisco, but just taking from the idea that Gabby has traveled all the way from Chicago to San Francisco to look at some kind of original writings or documents, it puts me in mind of the respect that is owed Emily Dickinson for having left her poems the way she did, exactly the way she did. You know, some in the drawer, some stitched, some loose, some on envelopes, right? And we're all familiar with that, but it's important to remember that she did not intend them to be little singular contributions to this magazine or that magazine. A poet who's Dickinsonian today, Ray Armentrout, and this is not a criticism of Ray, writes a lot of short poems that could be thought of as a single story, but sends them individually out, titles them usually with one word, and thinks of them as distinct. If you want to read them together, you can. Whereas Dickinson, I don't think she really thought of it definitively, is what you're saying, and therefore it can be read that way. Turn to Max on either of these questions, and then I want to invite Lainey to ask us a question about volcanoes in Sicily. And Lainey, that might be interrupted by a phone call coming. Okay. We'll see how that goes. Okay. Max, what's your thought on either of these questions?
Yeah, I want to build on Amber Rose's answer to Denny's question, because I think it's a very appropriate question for this week where we're reading Dickinson alongside Whitman, and Whitman was very interested in his life's work, you know, so to speak, Leaves of Grass, and kind of revising it over and over and making sure it would be some sort of total compendium of what he wrote, and how it would contain, you know, the poet Whitman himself in that work. So in some ways, you know, that comparison sort of, it kind of begs the question, is there something similar happening with Dickinson, which perhaps, I mean, there's certainly a Dickinsonian style, and we talk about Emily Dickinson in this sort of shorthand way that suggests that there's some sort of like cohesion right across her poems, that there's a poetics there that we can detect in all of her work that suggests that there's something total or unified about her work. But at the same time, I would say that what Emily Dickinson's poems ask us to do, and where she differs from Whitman, and this is the crucial, you know, Whitmanian Dickinsonian difference. I mean, what her poems ask us to do is maybe not to consider them as all belonging together. And I think that's something that you were just beginning to suggest there, Al, that they, you know, it's okay for things to not add up. It's okay for things to remain scraps. It's okay while bearing sort of the mark of their creator, right? Like I think of other crafts like pottery or something, where you might make, you know, thousands of pots that maybe, you know, they each sort of, they're all different, but they all kind of resemble each other because you have, you know, your hands and your technique, but they don't all have to kind of add up into one thing. It's okay for each one to be its own object.
Yeah, very modern. I just want to throw in there, for these two mid-century, 19th century American poets, very modern to be thinking about lots of pieces and not pushing the concept of a whole singular unit. Great. Thank you. Thank you all for that. And thank you, Denny and Adrian French, for the questions. What we're going to do is we're going to turn to the phone call. While we're turning the phone call, I'm going to ask somebody from the back to liberate the portable mic, because we have William, Jenny, and Zian here. And I would love to hand one of them a portable mic so that we can call on them. Oh, my goodness, they didn't expect that to happen.
Sure they didn't.
So who do we have? Can we get that portable mic? Is that possible? Okay. It's right there. William, will you go seek it, please? Just drift back there and find it.
Just your errand boy today.
Chris, what do we got? I forgot. You're not mic'd.
I forgot to ask where they are calling from, but on the phone we have Stanley Delgozo.
Stanley from New Mexico. Hello, Stanley. How are you? Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. You sound great.
Okay. I couldn't not call back because this transnational democracy borderless question just piqued my interest.
It's right up your alley. Yeah.
Yeah. So after ModPo last year, Max, your beloved TA that just spoke, created a European group. And of course, you know that I get up early in the morning. And so the European group was right up my alley. And while Max was on vacation, well, we continued to meet once a month all since ModPo last year. And what we talked about in August was incredible. We talked about the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty, the Brooklyn Bridge, all these things that Americans take for granted. And I got the European view of, because I'm the only USA person that hangs out with this crowd. Anyway, I just wanted to say that it really was a transnational democracy, and it was borderless, and we met all year, and I hope we meet again after ModPo's over, beginning in December or November.
Thank you, Stanley.
And I give the shout out to Max because he moved to Berlin, and let's see what else. I just got really excited about this ModPo transnational citizenship.
Great.
And I'd like to formally welcome Sophia.
Thank you.
To the TA ship. And she has your office hours now. I didn't. You don't have any more office hours.
Oh, you noticed that. I thought we could get away with that. I am going to be office hours TBA. I'm going to do some Zoom office hours, but not weekly. It's Sophia. Stanley, you are really sharp. Yes, Sophia slotted in. Sophia is Al this session or something like that. But yes, Stanley, right. I will definitely call our group together because our group is also international and really love that. Stanley, thank you so much for calling. It's good to hear your voice. Yeah. Thanks for the shout out to Max. Max is great, and that group, that ongoing group, is great. Notice that everybody noticed that Stanley said that group functions during what we call the slow PO season. So it goes from November to September, and then in September we have all this other busy stuff. Thank you, Stanley, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks so much for calling. Take care. Have a good day. All right.
And the difference is spreading.
The difference really is spreading. Thank you, Stanley. Stanley's been with the course for a long time. I see Lainey Brown. I see Jake, Marmer, Gabby, and Dave as people who need to be given a chance to say more during this webcast. So I wonder if you could ask the question, and then we'll get Jake, Gabby, and Dave to comment.
Okay. And I wanted to add to that list, when they're done, Jenny, who's here, because my question actually connects to a question that we were talking about after class, which is what is meta poetry? So I was thinking after the TAs speak, then Jenny, you could say, is this getting any clearer, or do you want to ask anything else?
So can you get the mic to Jenny sorry, that's Jenny, that's Mike. So that Jenny is ready. Yeah, you could give it to, and you might have to turn it on, Jenny. Okay, here is the question from Lainey.
So I'm going to read the question and then read Vesuvius at home, and then read the question again.
Okay.
So the question is, how might a lava step at any time be read as metatextual? Volcanoes be in Sicily and South America. I judge from my geography, volcanoes nearer here. A lava step at any time am I inclined to climb. A crater I may contemplate. Vesuvius at home. So once again, that question is, how might a lava step at any time be read as metatextual? So starting with Jake.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I think I'd read it as a metatextual, maybe also in conversation with something that Allen Ginsberg said in his Paris Review in interview, when he was saying, like, what is prophecy? It's not like knowing that such and such date, such and such event happens. It's writing something that another person one day, many years later, may read and feel really intensely and really deeply right there in the moment. And I think that's the lava moment, and the metatextual lava moment inside a poem is just the intensity with which a memory can come back, or an image may hit like a really deep personal place, is tremendous and beautiful. And maybe what this is, so much of this is about, like we were just talking about Danny's question of connecting Dickinson poems, and I had this vision, this memory that I haven't thought about in a long time, of great poet Steve Dalachinsky reading his poems, and he in that particular set, he was experimenting of how to go from one poem into another, just like mash poems on the spot, taking different works of his and mashing them in an improvised manner, and going from one to the other, like in this kind of like a slant way, and that was like almost like a step into a lava, because it brought back this really intense memory of an amazing performance, and that felt like a metapoetic moment.
Wow, so you're going in so many interesting places and complicating the question, which in ways that are really fascinating. And I wonder if there's a way to say it simply. Imagine that
you're trying to have a Jake Marmer comment be simplified?
Well, I'm trying to say, I'm thinking about
I'm teasing.
If meta poetry were a new concept. So you're saying something about time that I think is really important, that's happening. But when you connect prophecy to meta textual, so like, what is that connection in this poem between time and meta textuality? Is there?
I feel like that's a better question than an answer. Like what is the time of the meta textual? I don't know. It seems like a moment that, just like this moment that's waiting there to open up, a poem to say something about itself, about the process, about a memory. Yeah.
The Dalachinsky example is so great, because while Steve was not looking forward to the point beyond the reading, he was messing with the time signatures of the reading by making it hard to discern one poem from another by moving directly into the next. And
exactly.
There, the kind of poetics.
It just became a new thing. Exactly.
Yeah, and you're interested. You personally, as an artist, are interested in that jazz improv way of presenting things as indistinct noises from outside, for instance. And we've had that discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's go to Gabby.
Yeah. Well, I guess the thing I want to say is that the sort of primary difference between prose and poetry is that we set poetry, in the sense that we give it a real form on the page, a visible form, whether it's line breaks, indentations, em dashes, whatever. We give it a real sort of shape on the page. So it takes on a new dimension. And because of that, moving forward in any poem is less predictable and more formalized than moving in a piece of prose. which means that every time you move forward in a poem, you're kind of taking a calculated risk, which is to say there is a kind of unpredictability towards what will happen next because the level of freedom stylistically is higher. And you have a general sense of where you're going to go because poetry is really heavily based on a certain kind of repetition or established form. So because moving forward in a poem is like a calculated risk, it has a sort of potential for heat, no pun intended, in like, you might walk into abstraction, or you might walk into alienation, or you might walk into distance, or some kind of sharp, prickly point that you weren't quite sure was coming, but that was always sort of destined for you to hit. And I think that's kind of what's going on in a lot of step at any time. It seems to me the kind of like movement that one makes, even just at the level of your eyes, from one line to the next. Also, I'm just going to end this by saying that Vesuvius at Home is one of the sort of like all-timer Dickinson lines.
Totally is.
Fantastic. That's really wonderful. So are you saying that the unpredictability and maybe the risk is mirroring the writing process, and that's one way that it's metatextual? Or no?
Well, I think that what we call unpredictable is designed for you by a poet, right? Like, I don't necessarily believe that poetry writing is unpredictable and formalized, but I believe poetry reading is. And I think what I'm saying is that it's this weird sort of like bivalent thing where it is unpredictable and yet it's very predictable. And so that's sort of like, I don't know, if I think of a lava step as like a piece of hardened stone among something that could be stone but isn't quite hardened because it's so hot. It's sort of like that. Like you have either the potential for total form rupture, or you have the potential for real form coalescence or something like that.
Great. That's a great image. Thank you so much, Gabby. Let's go to Dave.
I apologize, and I don't mean to be difficult. Let me preface it by saying that, but I find the question a little confusing because you asked, how might a lava step be read as metatextual? And I just want to make sure we don't lose anybody who's just joining in to ModPo for the first time, because I think back to my early English 88 first year ModPo self and how I might not be able to lock into the conversation going on here. Like I mean, let's define metatextual first and then have the conversation. I mean, I know everybody's already past that, but I just want to lay the groundwork. So like when we talk about,
please do.
When we talk about metatextual, we're talking about, a text about a text, right? So the question, how might a lava step be read as metatextual? So what exactly is this question asking? How might this poem's use of a lava step be representative of something about the poem itself? Is that a fair statement?
Sure.
Okay, so I just wanted to lay that out there because I just wanted to make sure. So I still find the question a little bit confusing, but I hope that helps some people understand the point of how poems can use these types of devices as ways to take a step back and look at the poem and see what it's actually doing. Like here, the lava step being read as something about the poem, like a lava step being read as entering into a thought or an idea about something more local rather than something farther away.
This is a perfect transition, Dave, to Jenny, whom Lainey asked to tell us how clear or unclear the concept is at this point.
Yeah.
And I'll just interpose, Dave, that Lainey, at least the way Lainey presented the question to me earlier this week, was a lava step at any time. How might a lava step at any time, that phrase, be read as metapoetic? And the poem talks about uses the pronoun I, Emily Dickinson, the speaker, as someone who is exploring a volcano such that it winds up being in her room, which is where she writes the poem and where she does not leave to write the poem. So there's this poem-long analogy, Dave. This volcano that she's exploring is very much like the poem she is writing. And she's climbing that crater, which is the scariest part of a volcano because it's latent power, and peeking over into that hole. And this lava step at any time is kind of that journey up to the top of the poem, where she can have the view of the most powerful part of the poem, which is Vesuvius at home. So I take it the simplest version of this is the poem is like a volcano that is like a poem, and there's this two-track thing happening. It's like classic meta-poetry. So that's kind of a simple way of thinking that she's constructing a poem. Jenny, how are you doing? Thank goodness for Dave, who asked the question on behalf of all people who are not used to this crazy analogy that we keep making.
I'm just going to give this a try, but I think my understanding of meta right now is that a poem sort of has a meaning, and we can sort of interpret many details in this poem to be talking about that meaning and giving us an idea of what that meaning might be, trying to represent it. So I think for this poem, more specifically, is talking about like the power of imagination, power of the mind, especially the subjectivity and like personal thoughts versus external experience. So I think that in terms of subjectivity, this poem makes it really clear by saying things like, my geography, I judge. And as for a lava step, I think I'm going to focus on the M dash there, which I think is sort of a really interesting detail. I think having an M dash right after I judge from my geography sort of separates what's external to what's internal, in that those three lines are sort of representing the explosions of creativity, sort of that bursting of poetic inspiration.
Nice. Wow, snaps for Jenny. You're no rookie. My goodness. Thank you so much. What we're going to do, and thank you, Lainey, what we're going to do is we're going to take our phone call, because somebody's been waiting patiently, and then we're going to see about some discussion happening. Kate, Sophia, and Lainey will help us with that. And then we'll go around for final thoughts. Everybody gets a chance to add a new point, a different point. And then we will wrap up. So, Chris, who do we have on the phone?
Yes, Al, our good friend down in D.C., John Knight, is on the line.
Hello, John Knight. How are you?
Hi. I'm fine.
Good. It's good to hear your voice.
I was struck by the thought of using poetry to build community or society, and I just wanted to remind you, I'm sure you know this, that I was in the first ModPo, and I've paid attention to all the others. But what happened in my ModPo, as a group of us started meeting on Saturday mornings, talking for 2 hours every Saturday morning, and we've done that since the beginning.
Yes, you
since
have.
The beginning of the first ModPo.
Yes.
And so, you know, that's Anthony Kowalski and
Ray Maxwell,
Karen Elnier,
Karen
Ray,
Elenier. Yep.
Ray doesn't always join us. Ray doesn't always join. Evelyn Small. Anyway, the point of it is that we have used poetry as a basis for conversation, and we have maintained serious conversation, not persiflage, but for a number of years now.
Yes.
And it's built community, and we just follow your technique, Al. We read closely, but not too closely.
Yeah, exactly.
We usually spend 2 hours. We spend 2 hours and usually average about 3 poems. Sometimes we just do 1, and sometimes we do 5.
Yeah, that's marvelous, John. And yes, I have followed your group, And back in the day, you guys used to make pilgrimages up here pretty often. Although you came.
I'm talking to Anthony about coming up. I'm talking to Anthony about coming up next time.
Good. We'd love to see you maybe on the 21st for the party, because there's a lot of food here. We want you to have some of the food and celebrate. Yes, John, from the beginning, you have been talking about the importance of community, the interpretive community around the poems. I was just saying this to our class. We're having a class of an in-person 4-credit class here at Penn. And some of the students from that class are here. And I said something fairly outrageous, Lainey and Sophia, maybe it doesn't seem so outrageous, but I said, the poems are an excuse for convening a conversation. The poems are actually not as important as the conversation that they create. This is in effect what John is saying. We go there for 2 hours and we talk about 1 poem or 3 poems, but really ModPo becomes an excuse for a community to convene and for everyone to have a shot at meaning making. So it's so fantastic. John Knight, thank you so much for calling, and maybe you and Anthony and others can come see us on the 21st.
Well, I'll try and talk Anthony into it.
Great. How long is your beard now, John? Is it long? Are you Walt Whitman?
It's gotten to be quite long. It's gotten to be quite long.
I can't wait to see it. I cannot compete with you, but
I was called for jury duty, and so I thought I'd get myself kempt up a little bit. So it got trimmed. So now my beard is more trimmed.
Oh, if you had left it untrimmed, they probably wouldn't have selected you for the jury, figuring you were Kris Kringle or something.
That was the idea, but I didn't get selected anyway. But
okay.
But I wanted to get trimmed up so I could sneak in.
Well, you're a pacifist, and all you had to do was say that you're a pacifist, and they probably would have excluded you anyway. John, thank you for calling. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you for doing this. You're really doing a wonderful thing, Al.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate that. That's just a beautiful thing. We've known each other 10 years. It's so freaky.
Okay.
Take care. That was John Knight. So what we're going to do is, what did I say? Oh yeah, we're gonna tour around for some comments. So, Kate, what's happening in the discussion forum? Anything new there? Sorry, did I surprise you with that?
You did, but that's fine. We have several comments going on. One thing I loved is Jim Lynch brought in physics. We're accustomed to discussing Dickinson's metaphysics, but he's talking about the swerve and the clinamen as a physical word to describe the sort of peripatetic movement or the indeterminate movement of atoms. So he went off on a swerve there around Dickinson, which I love.
A swerve comment about the swerve.
That's right.
I love that. Thank you, Kate. So what's happening in Twitter, Sophia Durose?
We have a comment saying the thing I prefer about Twitter is that people outside of ModPo get a peek inside, which I think is really interesting given our conversation about metapoetics and understanding something from the inside out. And this, I guess, would be the reverse of that, with the possibility for further participation if this glimpse is exciting enough.
That's great. Something positive has been said about Twitter.
Yes.
And that is something we need to remember, because at base, it's a pretty good idea of a platform anyway. Yes, Lainey, what do we have in the YouTube comments?
We have a lot of love for the TAs, which is so nice.
Can you share some of that love?
Well, I was going to read something else, but because there's too much to just.
Well, give us some examples. Do they like?
Everybody is so appreciated. There was a lot of appreciation for Dave's, going back to define metatextual.
Yeah. That's Dave's role.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
He keeps us honest and straight.
Yeah. And Miranda Jeb had an interesting comment. Vesuvius at Home reminds me of some of the discussions we had in the forums about how ED radicalizes the concept of domesticity which is great. And there was a question from Deborah Unger. Why would a poet want to be metatextual? Which is a hard question, but it's important.
That was Deborah Unger?
Yes.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Repeat the question, please.
Why would
anybody want to be?
Why would a poem, maybe I wrote it down wrong, poem or poet want to be metatextual?
Wow, I love that. All right. That's good. Let's let that Deborah's question hang out there. And as we go around for final words, if you want to deal with that question and why the hell is what is ModPo? Because every poem in ModPo, pretty much, even Mending Wall, is metapoetic. So, what the heck is that about? Why are we doing that? Okay, so let's do final thoughts. We usually like to end after 90 minutes, and we have about 20 minutes. So, a couple of minutes each. We have luxury of time for a change. So let's start with Max and have Jake on deck.
For my final word, I think I'll just take a crack at Deborah's question. Why would a poet want to be metatextual or metapoetic? The idea that being metapoetic is somehow like radical or postmodern, I mean, it's only because we have in mind very specific kinds of poems or also very specific genres of literature that strive to be about something else. But the fact is, like, so much art is always already about itself, including poetry. And I think a great example here, kind of non-literary lower brow example, is rock and roll. The earliest rock and roll songs are all about rocking around the clock. I want to rock with you, rock this, rock that. It's a genre that's always
about itself,
commenting on itself from the beginning. And you can find a sort of poetic analogy for this. I mean, Homer is, at the beginning of the Homeric epics, Homer is like, I'm about to recite a big poem. That's part of the text. It's metapoetic from the get-go. 17th century novels. I mean, Cervantes, Don Quixote is a novel about novels. I mean, this stuff is completely like heady and crazy. It's only at a certain point in the history of literature, sort of in the late 19th century, early 20th century, that we get the sense that literature needs to be transparent and be a sort of window onto something else.
Damn.
So, why wouldn't you want to be meta?
That's such a great way of reversing it. That's such a great, the synthesis, the synthetic quality of that comment was just great. I love ModPo for it because, we're not trying to, I don't know, we're just talking here. And you just did this extraordinary historical analysis of rock and roll and Homer. And then you dissed, which I would join you on, the realist period, the high realist period of mid-19th century, early to late 19th century, where people actually tried to do realism and tried to pretend that they weren't writing a book. that this book you're reading is reality.
You're not writing a book than to pretend to acknowledge that you are.
That's right. So the question is, only then, which is a formative period, it coincides with empire, it coincides with all kinds of appropriation and exploitation. It is this moment where reality, grabbing hold of something and then describing it, becomes the primary mode. But every other time, it's all been turned in on itself and gnarly and Quixote-like. I love that.
Since the beginning.
Thank you, Max. That was really worth the price of admission, which is $0 anyway, so it's definitely worth it. Thank you, Max. You're the best. We're going to go to Jake next, and then Kate, and then what I'd like to do, William, is ask you to grab the mic and say anything you want about this course or about this session. This is William right here. Okay, so we're going to go to, what did I just say? Kate? Sorry, Jake and then Kate.
I'm happy to speak. Oh.
I think we're going to Jake and then Kate. Sorry.
Sure. Well, I just want to riff on what Max was saying because it was so good and so interesting, and maybe just add that I don't think anybody really wants to be metapoetic. It just has to kind of happen. And just as poems query their own making, poems query their own making, just as I think we as people query terms of our existence, or just like ask these existential questions. It's kind of like in the DNA of us and in the poems that we make. And I also just want to say thank you, Lainey, for that line that you brought out, a lava step at any time. I feel like this is what I love about Dickinson, and why this particular year I'm feeling Dickinson so much more than Whitman. It's like the single line that just like hits the spot, and I feel like I'm gonna be walking home and like the lava step at any time, like stepping into it and then walking it and trying it out, and like
Jake,
a single line that holds
both
it all.
of those points are magical. The first being basically, meta is human. Anybody who starts to do something, any human being that starts to do something, is going to contemplate the doing. And it's part of uncertainty. It's a part of moving forward. It's part of change. It's part of making something. You have to think about the making while you're making it. And it's human. It's a natural thing. And then that second point, the couplet is, a lava step at any time am I inclined to climb. That is a really fucking... That is a lava step at any time am I inclined to climb. What? Who wrote that? That person. Amazing. Thank you, Jake. You're the best. Kate is up, and then we're going to turn to William, who's got a microphone.
I don't even know which thing to take on, but
because you're so excited about all this.
I am. Just bouncing off of what Max and others have said about meta poems, I would argue that a poem is the ultimate site of self-reflexivity, because its medium is words at the closest range. So speaking as a poem, I'm not speaking as a poem, speaking as a person who writes poems, a good poem has to be meta-poetic, because one comes to it for love of words and all of the meanings that they hold and that accrue around them in time, as evidenced by Divya Victor's etymology of the word lute, and all of the sort of historical meanings and events that she builds into her poem and sort of also displays at the same time. I think a poem, if it's not self-reflexive and self-referential, I don't know what it's there for, really.
Wow, Kate, there's so many geniuses here. And it's also, everybody's so smart, but also the collaborative quality, the one after another, the accretion of ideas just gets everybody excited, and it's great. Kate, I'm so glad that you're into it. It's been a few months since we did this, but here we are, and it's good. And Sophia's over here taking notes. You're going to write a book. You know, it's crazy. Let's turn to William for a thought of any kind, and thank you in advance because you didn't know you were going to do this. This is William right here.
I also, the idea of self-reflection as natural to poetry also, I think, brings to mind the idea of artists in general as extremely self-conscious people, and so of course it's going to be part of that artist's nature to be self-conscious about being self-conscious. And so, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, William. Snaps for William. That was really great. I forgot to put Allie on deck here, so I'm going to turn to Allie, followed by Amber Rose.
Yeah, I think I love this conversation about, you know, kind of why is it meta? Or like, what do we get from the meta aspect? And I'm thinking about something you said, Al, about the radical comment you made in class, that like the conversation is more important than the poem or the object of the conversation. And at the end of the day, like, any activity that's about the activity that you're doing is pure presence, right? So if you're writing a poem and part of what you're doing is communing with the activity of writing a poem, that is pure presence. If you're talking about a poem with other people, that is pure presence around the poem, but also about like if you're talking about how the poem is about the poem, you're also kind of talking about how the conversation is about the conversation. So I think it's a really good, important, refreshing, energizing way of just being present in a moment, which is perhaps part of the reason why people come back to this year after year. I mean, the meta poetic aspect is this, you know.
That is great. I hope somebody. Well, we recorded. Yeah, good luck following that, Amber Rose. We recorded this, so it's really good. I mean, that is definitely going to be a clip for us to post. I just love the idea that the only reason people come back to this course, John Knight, 10 years, it's actually technically 11, is not because of the poems. It's because otherwise we'd already have covered them. Come back to hear what people have to say about the poems. Pure presence, beautiful. Amber Rose, followed by Sophia.
I'm just blown away by Allie's comment. That was so beautiful and lovely. A small thought for me to add to this conversation is that I'm someone who I'm in a PhD program. I'm writing about poetry in the midst of, all around us, humanities are being like underfunded, and we're not caring about things like poems. Not us, we're caring about poems, but the greater world is caring less and less about poems. And I feel like poems like these contain within them the argument for their importance. They say why we need poetry. They tell us what poetry can do that other forms of writing or communicating can't do or do differently. So I'm thinking about Tell All the Truth, but Tell It Slant. And that to me is a very meta-poetic poem in that it's saying that when you put truth in the form of a poem, people can receive it differently than when you put it in an essay with a thesis statement that says exactly what you're supposed to understand by the time you get to the end. A poem invites people in. It welcomes people in with their full self, with their full past and history and all their specialty knowledges to make the truth of that moment, the pure presence of that moment, something that's collaborative. So I think the meta-poetic is constantly reminding us that poetry does something that's different than any other form of creative output.
Yes, yes, yes. In a way, we've been leading to the idea that meta-poetic stuff is real. That's the real. And the stuff about like I've written this poem, but it's outside me and it's there and it's true unto itself. That's unreal. That's not the way the world works. I love that. We're reversing it all. Very radical. Amber Rose, thank you. Sophia's next, followed by Jason.
Okay, I have many thoughts, but I wanted to first start with giving a shout out to Jenny for just trying when we put you on the spot like that, but for doing a really fantastic job considering you were the one who asked the question. I feel like you answered the question incredibly well by, even focusing on the granularity of the grammar, which I feel like is sometimes a little bit lost in this course where we talk about the poem as a whole and breaking it apart is less important than the conversation it inspires. But a really important aspect of what you did with this poem was you took something as small as the M dash and that allowed you to enter it. And then you figured it out from there. So entering it like that was helpful to you. And then it brought you to the bigger picture. I also thought when Allie said pure presence, I again thought of the line, a lava step at any time, and any time being present every time we read the poem, every time anyone reads the poem, and this permanent instruction to the interiority of the poem, which is about the interiority of a person. And that's communal because it's like on a page and it's always present, it's always there. Yeah. And thanks, William, for participating as well.
Thank you, Sophia. That's really nice. You shouted out to people.
Yeah.
That's really cool. In the right spirit. Let's go to Jason, followed by Lainey.
Sophia was bringing up the lava step yet again, it's interesting. I don't think we've ever talked about the lava step in
We haven't.
But a lava step at any time to me is such a fascinating phrase because it both allows you to think of lava, like actual hot lava running down a vertical surface and kind of making a step, and then the dried lava later that you can actually physically step upon. So in that one phrase, to me, I get like a temporal, I don't, metapoetic be even what this is? It's more like a temporal multiplying of possible states that, or in the way that kids play hot lava and imagine lava all over the floor and have to jump from chair to chair. Like in a way, this poem allows us to also imagine, hot lava everywhere. Part one. And the other part is that I think the poem also is a volcano, that the act of of the act of reading or writing a poem is to like generate an active volcano of language that's transformative to the terrain of language as a volcano is to the geological terrain. And so yes, there are volcanoes everywhere, and in the heart of language is that hot magma potential that a poem can release and then create, can cool, and we can walk on its cooled lava steps.
And it could also blow up any time again. So it
Yeah,
cools
so
and then blows up again, which is that is a perfect image, Jason, of a poem moving through time, moving through the decades and the centuries. Every once in a while we peek into the crater and boom, it does it again. It never stops. It's geology. Thank you. We're going to turn to Lainey and then to Dave, and then I'll have a final thought and we'll be done. Lainey.
So when I first heard the question, why metatextual, I thought, well, I don't know, but it's irresistible. I can't help it. That's just where I want to go. And of course, listening to everybody's brilliance, it's like, aha, oh, pure presence. Who wouldn't want that, right? But I'm also thinking about it as this aspirational space where, so if the poem could be this parallel place to work out whatever we don't comprehend. And so it's the aspirational mountain. It does not yet exist. That's where I want to go.
Yeah.
To find the creative solution that I don't know what it is. So, and the element of time with the lava step is we don't know when that lava is going to solidify. So we're very tentatively climbing the mountain that does not
Poetry
yet
is an
exist.
exploration of a terrain that is unstable and could get you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, but we can't help but go in that direction.
I know. Wow. So it's dangerous.
It's dangerous.
Being a poet. It's dangerous. Very cool. Thank you, Lainey, as always. Dave Poplar, final thought, and then I'll wrap up.
Two quick observations. One is about something that you said, Al, that Ali also commented on when you said the poems are really just an excuse for convening a conversation. And I really like that because that is what we're doing here. But I think it's also cool because looking forward to chapter 2, that's also what the poems are doing too. The poems are having a direct conversation with other poems. I mean, you will see in a supermarket in California, they do it explicitly, but we can also see the influences that they're really having conversations on a level of the poem to the poem. So that's sort of a meta observation there.
Yeah.
And just another final quick comment regarding our conversation about how ModPo could be analogized to a transnational democracy, and I think that's pretty cool. And it definitely seems democratic, but I just want to suggest maybe another analogy could be that ModPo is more like a pickup jam session, really. We all get together and we all
get the band back together.
Yeah, we hang on certain riffs, and it's funny to think about how many songs are just centered on the same basic, 1-4-5 progressions or 12-bar blues progressions and things like that. But they become so different because of everybody contributing and then joining together and mirroring riffs and doing all sorts of things together. And I feel like in a lot of ways that's what we come together to do.
Yeah.
With each poem in ModPo.
We're making music, Dave. We're making music. Thank you. Okay, couple things. First of all, I want to recommend that everybody go to a forum or it's a thread within the Week 1 forum on The Brain Within Its Groove. And there is a comment by Shreya Jain, Jain, and the thread is entitled Mental versus Physical Damage. And it brings up a very difficult issue, which is thinking about that poem as teaching us a little bit about mental versus as distinct from physical damage. Shreya says something that's very provocative and deep, and I hope you'll go and talk to her about it. We can recover from the worst calamitous damages, referring to physical hurt, and restore the usual business. But once you lose your mind, and that's a reference obviously to the digression of the mind, once you lose your mind, there is no going back. That's sort of a summary of what Dickinson is saying, which is pretty extraordinary. Thank you, Shreya, and everybody else who's involved in the discussion forums this week. I want to remind everybody that on September 21st, which is 2 Wednesdays from now, we're going to be celebrating. If you can get to the Writers' House, great. If you can't, watch us. It's going to be quite a gathering. Talk about music. I want to encourage everybody to go to office hours. They have been great. We will continue to announce those. I want to thank Vijaya, Anthony, Denny, Adrian French for the great comment about the community, Stanley Delgozo calling in from New Mexico, John Knight from Washington, Deborah Unger for that fabulous question about meta, William, Jenny, and Zian for hanging out with us. Thank you guys all for being with us. The TAs, Max, Jason, Dave, Allie, Jake, Kate, welcome, Sophia. You're the best already. Amber Rose Johnson, of course, Lainey Brown. Thanks to Chris and to Zach. And we will see you in the forums. I wanted to point out a book that just came out recently by Lainey Brown. It is a beautiful book. And this cover, what is the color, Lainey?
I say it's a coppery rose-ish color.
It's an amazing color. And you can't really tell, but it has such a great texture, the jacket. It's called Translation of the Lilies Back into Lists. And the whole book is a series of list poems. And it is... Oh, you love a list poem. I love list poems. This is like, I just it's gathering paradise just to have this. Lainey, congratulations on the book. It is published by Wave Books, and it is just a winner of a book. And one more thing, and I'll probably have more to say about this another time. The Alchemy Spoon issue 7 just came out, and there is a kind of free-flowing essay by yours truly, connecting ModPo. It's called Who Keeps Us Safe, which is a chant that was used in the summer of 2020 at various mass anti-racist protests. Who keeps us safe? And the answer is, we keep us safe. And it was a reference to kind of an anti-policing feeling, but also a reference to the fact that in the summer of 2020, people who are gathering in close quarters, even outside, were at risk before the immunizations were available, risk of COVID. And they were saying the rhyming of BLM, of the pandemic, and of the failure of education, get to that in a second, came together in this who keeps us safe answer. We keep us safe. We keep us safe. A remarkable thing. And this crazy essay of mine tries to understand ModPo and the resistance to online teaching and learning. And that resistance gets updated for 2020, and it has everything to do with who keeps us safe. We keep us safe. So just a tantalizing. I'll probably scan this and post it somewhere. I'm really delighted to have had the opportunity to think through ModPo one more time. Thank you all. You're great. We will see you in a week. Make sure you get to the forums. Read week 2 next week, and we'll see you soon. Bye.